DNA-encoded library, or DALE, is a technology that enables fast screening of billions of small molecule compounds for drug discovery. This is a DALE molecule. It contains a chemical compound with a DNA label. Thanks to sequencing technology, the compound can be conveniently identified, like scanning a barcode. By applying combinatorial chemistry, building blocks are conjugated to establish compounds. Connected with DNA labels, compounds can be uniquely identified. Let's say there are 1,000 different building blocks in each round. If you perform 3 rounds, which is 1,000 cubed, 1 billion different combinations will be achieved. DALE enables mass creation of chemical libraries, increasing the chance of discovering hits. Conjugation with DNA labels significantly accelerates the screening process. DNA-encoded library is a groundbreaking technology. Screening billions of compounds can be accomplished in one small tube. Minimum amount of target proteins is needed for incubation with billions of DALE compounds. Compounds of high affinity are attracted by target proteins and bind to them. Those that don't bind to proteins are washed away. By shifting elution conditions, strong binders are isolated and collected. The isolated binders are decoded by reading DNA labels to access their chemical structures. In contrast to traditional technology, DALE no longer requires separate experiment for each compound. Instead, experiments are performed in a single tube. DALE has reinvented hit discovery process and is able to deliver screening results in 6 to 8 weeks. The efficiency of drug discovery is improved when time is saved.
Good afternoon and welcome to the DALE-Kit special event, a new method of hit discovery. I am Muying Wang, a senior research scientist at WuXi AppTec, and it is my great honor to introduce today's speaker, Dr. Alex Satz, who is the Senior Director of DALE Strategy and Operations at WuXi AppTec. Alex has more than 15 years of experience in building DNA-encoded library platforms. And for the audience, if you have any questions for Alex, please feel free to use the Q&A box down below. It is your chance to interact with us, and we'll answer as many of your questions as possible in the Q&A session at the end of the webinar. Without further ado, I now give you Alex Satz.
Hello. First, I will share my screen. Let's make sure that that goes well. Okay, and I'll turn on my laser pointer. So yes, my name is Alex Satz, and I've been in the DALE field for about 15 years. And what I would like to talk to you about is our self-service DALE kits and why we at WuXi have made those kits. And so there are 2 main reasons why. And the first is that unlike a full-service DALE, with a self-service kit, we send the DALE to you and you screen those DALEs in your own lab. Whereas with the full-service DALE, you would send the target to us and we would screen it. And the advantage there is that the costs of doing a screen can be lower. And if the costs are lower, as on the next slide, I will show you, it means that if you were an academic group, it allows us to provide you with a DALE kit for free. The second advantage is that because the target is not sent to us, then we at WuXi don't know what your target is. And this allows you to screen it without sharing any confidential information. And so if your target isn't shared, or the way in which you do your screen isn't shared, then you can keep those things as a secret for yourself. Okay, so let's look at this part of the slide, and we'll talk about what is involved in conducting a DALE screen. So first, it starts off with, for instance, in the case of a DALE open kit, that we at Wuxi will send the kit to you. And jobs that we do are shown here in blue, and jobs which you have to do are shown with the yellow circle. So the kit is ordered by you, we send it to you, and then you conduct the physical screen in your lab. When the screen is done, the samples from that screen are then sent back to us, where we do the QC work, we do the NGS, and then we share the results with you. But the results that we share are the metadata of the screen. So it's the data that comes from the screen, but we don't show you the chemical structures yet. You would choose up to 5 hits from that screen with our help, and then we would resynthesize those hits for you. Of course, you still wouldn't know what the structures are. We would then send those hits to you, and you would test them to see if they are active in the assays that you have in your lab. And if the results look good, then we share the structures of those hits with you. But in exchange, because this is Dell Open, it's overseen by an academic group, and it's completely free of charge. There's no cost if you are an academic group. We would then ask that you share the name of the target that you screened, and you allow us to then post the metadata of your screen on the dellopen.org website. And so it's called Dell Open because it's all about the sharing of data. And the sharing of data allows other academic groups to see the results of your screen and then potentially collaborate with you to publish more work. So after you now have your active hits, you are free to do anything that you would like to with those hits. That includes publish a patent, publish a paper, you could sell them, you could discover a drug, and there's no reach-through claims on the part of Wuxi. And so you completely are free to do anything you would like to with those hits, and there are no further fees, and there's no milestone costs. So Dell Open is designed for academic labs so that they can do Dell screens for free. We then have something which is a little bit different. It's called a Delight Kit. The process is much the same as for the Dell Open Kit. So you order the kit from us, and we send the kit to you. You physically do the screen. However, in this case, there is an upfront fee to purchase the Delight Kit. The Dell Open Kit was free. The Dell Kit comes at a cost. When you are done with your screen, you send the samples back to us. And again, we will do the QC work. We will do the NGS work. And we will share the metadata of the screen with you. And the goal here is to help you make a choice if you want to pay an additional fee in order to decide to unblind all of the data from this screen. So if you do pay this fee, then we share the chemical structures of everything that has enriched on the output of your Delight screen. So you might receive a file of hundreds of thousands of potential hit structures. After you make that choice, then you are free to follow up the result of your screen in any way that you would like. And once again, there are no reach-through claims from us. There are no further fees, and there are no further milestones. So you are free to do anything you would like to with the hits that come out of your screen. So the Dell Open and the Delight kits have been around for about 1 to 2 years. And so we are often asked, how many kits have we actually sent out? And the answer is here on this slide. We have sent out 346 kits thus far. So this slide is a fun slide. The number here is extremely large, but it is real. So every Dell kit that we deliver has 4 tubes in it, and every tube has billions of discrete structures. And every time you run a Dell screen, you are effectively doing a single point assay on every one of the structures in every one of those tubes. And if you do the math, and we've delivered 346 Dell self-service kits, then that effectively ends up being 299 quadrillion single point assays of all the discrete chemical structures in those kits. We have also disclosed through the Delight and the Dell Open kits over 17 million unique structures. So that means that people have chosen these, or they have paid the extra fee, and we have disclosed all of these structures. So this number is both good, but you could also view it potentially as being bad, because you could be concerned that if we have shared so many structures with clients in the past, that perhaps there's nothing else left in this kit that is good. But you shouldn't be concerned of that. It turns out that 17 million structures accounts for only 0.008% of the total chemical structures contained within our Delight kits. And so the vast bulk of the novel structures in these kits have never been disclosed to anyone else ever. Also, there's a reason why we're having this talk, and that is because we have a new 3rd generation Dell kit. A nice thing about the Dell field is that a single chemist can make a new Dell in 3 to 4 months, and that Dell will contain millions of new chemical structures that have never been made prior and have never before been screened. And when we have made the 3rd generation Dell kit, these new kits, we have added 50% more new Dells to these kits. And we've also, in the result of doing that, have added billions of new chemical structures to both the Delight kit and the Dell Open kit. And so these new kits are full of structures that the world has never before seen and never before screened. So with the Dell self-service kits, we send the kit to you and you do the screen in your own lab. And that means that we at Wuxi have a responsibility that when you send the kit back to us, that we handle the results properly. Because if we were to do a bad job, then that would end up wasting your time. And so what we have done is we have set up an automatic workstation to help us make sure that there's no human error potentially involved in the processing of your Dell kits. So to prove this, we have processed 16 different samples, and those samples are shown here along the x-axis. We have processed them multiple times over a span of 5 different working days. So all of the different samples are shown here. And the correlation between these different samples are shown here on the y-axis, and they range from an R-squared value of 0.98 to 0.998. And so what this plot shows is that every sample that we work on gives a result that is exactly the same, no matter what day we work on it or who does the actual work. And so that allows you to feel assured that when you put the time in to conduct the screen in your lab and you send the samples back to us, that we will indeed process them in a proper fashion. And no matter which day we receive the sample on, your results will look exactly the same. So the first time you ever run a Dell screen can be a little stressful. And that's not because conducting a Dell screen is particularly hard to do. We provide a lot of help in order to do it, but because you don't know if the result of the screen is good. So you don't really know if a Dell screen worked until after we process it and share the data with you. So there's some steps that you want to keep track of, and we have set up a portal where you can go online and you can keep track of all these different steps so that you know where your sample is. So for instance, you can find out about your shipping. And when you ship the sample to us, you can determine when the sample has arrived and we have it. And then you can keep track of how your QC has gone, how the NGS sequencing has gone, and when the report is ready for you to view so that you can see your own data. So to log in is a pretty simple thing. You type in your email here, you set up a password, and you click, and then you are in. And once you are inside of this portal, you can do everything that you would like, including order more kits. And again, you can track and make sure that the process of working on your samples is going as planned, and you can plan your timing because you will know when your report will be ready. Another topic is how do you actually view your data? So for the Dell Open case, you need to choose your 5 best hits. And for the Delight case, you need to choose if you want to pay the additional fee to unblind all of the structures from your sample. And in the past, this has been done with a static PDF. So we simply would send you a file which you could read through, and you would need to make a decision about what your next step was. However, every target is different, and every target team has different goals. And we have found that a static PDF, just a piece of paper, it can be challenging for you to read that and make the decision about what you would like to do. So instead, you can now interact freely with your data. So again, you can go online and you can look at the result of your own screen. So for instance, you could decide that you want to look at hits that show up only in condition 2. And so here that means region A. And you can set thresholds. You can say that you only want to see hits that have an enrichment of at least 10 in condition 2 and less than 10 in conditions 3 and 4. And you would find then all the different Dells that you have hits in. And you would see that you have over 5,000 potential hits across 47 Dells. You could then choose to be a bit more specific And you could say, I want the enrichment in condition 2 to be at least 100-fold, and I want the enrichment in conditions 3 and 4 to be less than 1. So you're looking for hits that are potentially more potent and more selective for condition 1. And in that case, you now have 2,000 potential hits across 20 different DELs. You can dive into this data a little bit further as well, and you might choose that you only want to look at hits that have a heavy atom count below a certain range, or a C log P below a certain range, and you can do that here too. And so you can narrow your data down to what you think is important for your group and for your work, and then you can make the decision about, do you want to pay an additional fee to unblind all of the data, or which 5 hits would you like to choose in the case of DEL Open, so that we can resynthesize those for you. So we have DEL screening in 4 different places, or 3, sorry, in Munich, in Shanghai, and in Boston. And so depending upon where you are, you can decide to send your samples back to any one of these 3 spots in order for the processing to take place. In addition to that, if you were around Boston by chance, you can visit our labs there. And as the signs here say, it says, welcome to DEL Open Teaching Lab and welcome to Delight Teaching Lab. And so you can visit our labs and you can learn how to do a DEL screen, or you could bring your target with you and you could physically do the screen in our labs. Now, if you can't visit Boston, it's perfectly fine. Again, you can go to the portal and we have a lot of information about how to do these DEL screens. And as I've said prior, we have shipped out 346 DEL kits, and we know for a fact that research groups that have never done a DEL screen can do them, and they can do them well. So I just said that labs that have never done a DEL screen can do these screens and can do them well. So let me clarify that a little bit further. So in the case of our Delight kits, almost every Delight kit that has been returned to us has been screened very well. And the QC of those kits look very good. In the case of the DEL Open kits, many of those screens have gone very well, but some have not gone as well. And so what we have done now for the 3rd generation kits is that we have included the reagents and the protocols that you need to do a real-time QC, so that as you screen in your own lab with these kits, you can determine if the screen has gone well before you ship the kit back to us. So let me talk a little bit on this one slide about what that means. So one problem that we see is that somehow DEL from one tube will be added to the output of the DEL of a different tube. And so what we allow you to do now is to make sure that when you collect a DEL from a sample, so you've screened this tube and you've collected the output, we can now make sure that the output of tube 1 is not mixed with the output of tube 2. And you can now do this in your own lab in order to make sure that your samples haven't been mixed up. Now, we're not exactly sure how this mixing of samples happens. We think perhaps some groups might reuse pipette tips, or they might not pipette in a careful way so that the tubes get mixed up. But now with the real-time QC included in the 3rd generation kit, you can make sure that your samples look good before they're sent back to us. If the samples look bad, then you can call us and we might help you make the decision to simply get a new kit and to start over. Now, every target that you screen is going to provide a different amount of DEL on the output. However, we do have an expectation roughly of how much DEL should be collected after each screen. And if the amount of DEL that you collect is far too small or far too large, then we would know that some error has been made. And so again, in this 3rd generation kit, we provide you with the tools that you need in order to determine if the correct amount of DEL is being recovered after each round of screening. And again, if the results look really bad, then we can give you the option of getting a new kit and conducting your screen again. Because of course, if you send us a kit with these QC problems, then chances are the result of your screen won't look good and you won't find hits. And so it is, in those cases, probably better to start over. Okay, so this is my last slide. And let me summarize once again the new things about the 3rd generation DEL kit. So first of all, the kit itself has 50% more DELs and billions of new structures that have never before been made and never before been screened. The screen itself is conducted by you in your lab. However, we now have real-time QC, which you can do to make sure that your screen has physically gone well. And that means when the results look good and you ship the kit to us, you don't have to be as worried about, did this screen go well? When you're ready to view the data, you can now go online and you can interact freely with your own work, your own data, to make the decisions that you need to make. Do you want to pay the fee to unblind all of the data in the case of Delight, or in the case of Del Open, which 5 hits do you want to choose and have synthesized for you? There's another topic which I haven't discussed thus far. In the world of DEL, we generate a very large data set. And it's often asked, since this data set is so large and there's a lot of potential MedChem SAR contained within the data, could some sort of machine learning or AI be used to make better choices than a chemist might make with this data set to decide about either hits that you want to resynthesize or to virtually screen a different database looking for new hits using the DEL data as the basis for that screen. So I won't go into details about this because there's a presentation after mine which discusses this a bit, but we do now offer the option for an additional fee where when you do a Delight screen, you can work with a partner to have the machine learning done on your data set which might help you make better choices about which hits to follow up or to screen other databases of potential hits to find completely new hits that might fit a physical profile that you like, or which might be less expensive to synthesize and then test those hits from that commercial database. Okay, so this is the QR code for the HITS team. So you can always take your phone and you can take a picture of the QR code, and it takes you to our website. And yeah, that's my last slide. And with that, I will hand it back. And I will be back later for any Q&A.
Thank you, Alex. I'd like to remind the audience that please comment on any questions you have anytime. And next, we're going to hear from 3 panelists. Alex will be back for the Q&A session, so don't worry about that. The first 2 panelists are DelKit users, Dr. Jia Xie and Dr. Erkan Baloglu. Dr. Jia Xie is a visiting investigator at Scripps Research, and Dr. Erkan Baloglu is the founder and the principal at Boston Biotech Consulting, who has 20 years of experience in medicinal chemistry and drug discovery. Let's hear these videos.
Hello everyone, I'm Jia from Scripps Research. I've been working with the Dell Open program for more than a year. Here I want to briefly share with you my experience and the thought about the program. I think it's probably very similar to many other colleagues. When I first heard about this almost free Dell Open project, I could not believe it really exists, because at the same time other companies are charging hundreds of $1,000s for the service, and no one would share any of their libraries. I mean, which is understandable, because it is very expensive to make those libraries, and they indeed valuable assets of their companies. However, this situation makes DNA encoded library technology almost inaccessible to people in academia, where actually the most innovations come from, right? So briefly, we got the comprehensive paperwork done, and we started to use the free libraries. So we were lucky to be the first batch of users for the distributed libraries. So we screened the libraries with several of our favorite targets. So I have to say that in the beginning, the process was slightly different from our previously oversimplified idea about how the screening should go. But the Dell Open team members gave us a lot of suggestions. We had quite a few times of effective and efficient discussions with them about the encountered problems. Later on, the bioinformatic analysis further provided more insights for the improvement. And with their great help, we were able to identify quite a few binders to our protein targets. I can see they are very rapidly responding to the feedback from the clients. The second version of the Open Libraries came with a more detailed protocol, part of which was relevant to our increase. To me, the best part of Dell Open program, first, it gives free libraries and a free bioinformatic service. It gives you the information to decide whether to move or not to move forward. The compound synthesis service is also at a very reasonable price. The second part is confidentiality as well as the openness. And there was a very comprehensive paperwork signed up front, protecting both parties. And there are multiple points that you can pause to choose whether or not to move forward and review your target. Right? So I would highly recommend people to try it out, and I wish the program can grow bigger and better. helping to promote basic and translational research from a angle never before. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Erkan Baloğlu. I am the founder and principal of Boston Biotech Consulting, a small boutique biotech company providing strategic, tactical, scientific, and operational expertise on all aspects of drug discovery and early clinical development. I'm a medicinal chemist by training with over 20 years of experience in the pharmaceutical industry, leading drug discovery programs and teams from early drug discovery through clinical candidate selection, preclinical development, IND filing, and early clinical development activities. As a scientist, I was aware of the DEL technology, but I never utilized it until last year. In my previous role as Vice President of Drug Discovery and Medicinal Chemistry at Restore Bio, where I was heading drug discovery operations, we decided to use the DEL technology to screen for and identify a novel hit for one of our programs. So after a detailed search and interview process of several service providers, we decided to collaborate with WuXi on this journey. And we were particularly impressed with the WuXi team, their depth of knowledge and experience in the science, their generosity in applying their expertise and advice on our program, the size of the compound library offered, and the state-of-the-art facilities equipped with the latest technology and instruments. And I know because I visited the Shanghai labs last year. Furthermore, we were attracted to all other services WuXi offered, such as syntheses, follow-up testing, and any additional studies that might be required. So basically, WuXi provided a very convenient one-stop shop for our small, all-virtual biotech company. I founded Boston Biotech Consulting earlier this year and started assisting my clients on their drug discovery and early clinical development programs. One of my clients, a university professor here in the US, reached out to me and asked for advice on how to initiate a drug discovery program on a novel target that they were planning to work on. I walked them through the phases of drug discovery and introduced several options in order to identify a hit as the starting point of their future drug discovery program. After weighing all options, reviewing the pros and cons of various technologies, it was decided to utilize DEL technology to identify a novel hit. And naturally, because of my previous experience and connections, we reached out to the WuXi team for a potential collaboration. To our surprise, we were offered the DEL Open option, a service provided to the academic community only. And most importantly, it was free of charge. So according to the offer, my client required the protein of interest or prepare the protein of interest. WuXi would ship the DEL Open kit. My client would then perform the screening in their labs according to the procedures and ship the materials back to WuXi for further processing. This was an amazing offer from several angles for my client because there is no commitment to pay any fees if no hits were identified. The protein of interest of the novel target could be kept confidential. All the expertise and the advice offered by WuXi scientists came free of charge. In addition, the potential to introduce certain level of selectivity early on at the seed identification stage made us feel confident that this was the best option for my client. So we agreed to proceed with DEL Open. WuXi also offered my client another great opportunity. the option to perform the screening at WuXi's all-new state-of-the-art facility in the Boston area, dedicated to Dell Open with all the instruments and equipment needed, also free of charge. The protein was shipped to WuXi Labs, and all we had to do was to show up. Basically, the kit and everything else we needed were waiting for us at WuXi's dedicated labs for Dell Open. After a brief introduction of the facility, we were given detailed procedures to perform the screening. Now, keep in mind, we had no prior experience on how to perform Dell screen. In addition, not only were the Dell screen procedures were extremely straightforward, but two highly experienced WuXi scientists were there with us, available to walk us through the procedures and answer any questions that we might have. The whole process was actually very pleasant. More importantly, we recently received the results of our screen and found out that several potential hits were identified and proposed for off-DNA synthesis. And WuXi is now also helping us with the synthesis of these hits. And my client and I can't wait to test these compounds to move this very interesting program to the next phase.
Thank you for that. We have one last speaker before the Q&A session, and for the audience, please get your questions in. Our next speaker is Dr. Robert Abel, who is the Executive Vice President of Science at Schrödinger. Robert will be sharing his perspective on WuXi AppTec Schrödinger partnership. Let's hear from him.
Hi, I'm Robert Abel, Executive Vice President of Science at Schrödinger. I lead our computational science R&D portfolio, and I work closely with our drug discovery group, account managers, and application scientists to make sure our computational methods are used to greatest possible effect to advance our internal and collaborative drug discovery projects, as well as those of our software customers. Schrödinger's industry-leading computational science platform facilitates the research efforts of biopharmaceutical and industrial companies, academic institutions, and government laboratories worldwide. Our platform integrates best-in-class physics-based modeling with state-of-the-art machine learning and best-in-class enterprise-level solutions. We believe integrated use of these technologies can greatly increase the probability of success of drug discovery efforts and accelerate the realization of novel, more efficacious drug therapies. Schrödinger also pursues a number of wholly owned and collaborative drug discovery programs in a broad range of therapeutic areas. Our collaboration with WuXi will integrate Schrödinger's physics-based software platform and machine learning analysis with WuXi's DNA-encoded library service. We believe this will decrease the false positive and false negative rates of traditional Dell screening and will allow for more rapid identification of high-quality small molecule hits suitable for initiation of hit-to-lead and lead optimization efforts for a wide variety of medicinally relevant protein targets. We at Schrödinger are deeply excited to combine our machine learning and physics-based modeling capabilities with WuXi's ability to generate experimental data at scale. We further believe by leveraging the expertise of both companies in this strategic way, we will enhance our internal drug discovery efforts and will also be able to provide our partners and customers more and better avenues to discover new therapeutic candidate molecules. We at Schrödinger are very excited to be working with WuXi in this area.
Thank you. Great talk and video. We have about 10 minutes left for Q&A, and we've already received several questions and messages from different channels so far. I want to get to those right away. Alex, are you ready?
I am ready, yes.
Perfect. Let's get started. The first question I see here is, would someone who has affiliation in academia but has his or her own startups be qualified for a Dell Open Kit?
So yeah, this is fairly common. So if you're a professor and you have your own lab, but you also have a startup, you can order the Dell Open Kit through your academic lab, and you can do the screen there. And certainly once you find hits, you are free to do anything you would like to with those hits, including giving them to your startup or selling them to anyone, really. Yeah, the only thing I would say there is that the Dell Light Kit is probably the best way to find a new potential drug in the fastest manner, but Dell Open certainly exists for that reason too.
Okay. How many compounds can the user receive after Dell Light screen? And is it required to do chemical synthesis at WuXi?
So in the case of a Delight Kit, when you pay the extra fee to unblind all of the chemical structures, you get all of those potential hits. And depending upon the screening result, that list might be thousands of potential hits long, or it might be hundreds of thousands of potential hits. Now, once those hits have been shared with you, you're free to follow them up any way that you would like. So you could ask us at WuXi to resynthesize certain hits, or you could resynthesize those hits in your own lab. Or you could go to someone else and you could ask them to resynthesize those hits. The advantage of having the hits resynthesized by us at WuXi is that we know the chemistry well, and we generally will have all of the needed building blocks in stock. And so we can probably make the hits more quickly than other groups.
I'll just ask.
I should add though, in the case of Dell Open, we have to resynthesize the hits because you don't know what the structures are until after you assay them and you find out that they work, and we exchange the data for the structures. So in the case of Dell Open, we at WuXi have to synthesize the hits, and in collaboration with DellOpen.org and the academic group that oversees Dell Open, we resynthesize those hits at a fixed price of $2,000 per hit. Okay, I'm done.
That's what I wanted to follow up with that question. Perfect. Let's see the next one. Where does the chemical library come from?
So we make the Dells, and the Dells are made in Shanghai. Yeah, so as I said during the presentation, one chemist can make one Dell in perhaps 4 months. That's not really how we make Dells, though. We have a group of about 30 people, and we all sort of work together to make each Dell. And we can make about 10 Dells per month at WuXi.
Okay. If a hit is identified, the following up chemical synthesis will be done at WuXi or can be done at a partnership way?
Yeah, if it's through Delight, it can be made, the follow-up synthesis can be made anywhere by anyone. Of course, we at WuXi are very happy to help with that. It's something that we're very good at. We understand our own chemistry very well, but once we unblind the structures and we share the structures with you, you are free to work on those in any way that you would like.
Perfect. If I apply for the DAL Open Kit, can I choose to unlock all structures to my protein? Because I believe DAL Lite includes such choice.
So Dell Lite provides that choice and Dell Open does not. So with Dell Open, you can only choose 5 structures. We have to synthesize the structures and then we send the compounds to you. You assay them, and if you like them, if there's something active in those 5 and you want to see the structures, then you exchange the metadata to be shown on the dellopen.org website, and we give you the structures. If none of the hits were active of those 5, then you could choose another 5 to follow up, but then you wouldn't find out what the structures were or the first 5. So with Dell Open, it's at most you're going to see 5 structures.
I think we have about 4 to 5 minutes left, so we can get to several more questions real quick. The next one, do you have experience with transcription factors as targets?
So the answer is yes. Some transcription factors have been extremely hard to find hits for. They have a couple of different problems. One is oftentimes they will bind to the DNA barcode itself. And to prevent this, you need to add DNA, which will bind to your transcription factor and which will block that binding pocket. If you do this, then you can then run the DEL screen. The caveat to that, or the potential bad thing, is that when your transcription factor is bound to DNA, it does change its conformation. And so you need to make a decision. Do you want to find hits that are bound to a transcription factor that is bound to DNA, or do you want to find hits bound to a transcription factor that isn't DNA bound? Because that might be the state of the protein that you're looking to bind in your cellular assay. Now, as far as the hit rate for transcription factors, some transcription factors we've had a lot of success with, and others we haven't. So it really depends upon the transcription factor. Some of them have a binding pocket and others don't. And so you don't know the answer until you conduct the screen.
I see. Next one. What do you do to cover drug-like space better?
Oh, so there's a lot of different thoughts about what constitutes drug-like space. But I think the most general rules are that you want to find chemical matter that has log P within a certain range and molecular weight within a certain range. So when we at WuXi think about designing DELs that are going to help people find a potential oral drug, we think about generating matter which has a molecular weight of less than 500 grams per mole and will have a C log P of less than 5. And generally the smaller and the more polar we consider better, assuming that your log P stays above a log P of about 2. So that's the range that we look for to make chemical matter. We also try to avoid chemical structures that are metabolically unstable. So we avoid those too.
Okay. One last question. On average, how successful are these screens?
So the success of the screen is completely dependent upon the target. So our success rate against proteins that have binding pockets is extremely high. And our success rate with proteins that have no binding pockets tends to be far lower. Most proteins, however, which are considered really tough, they often have targets, or they often have a binding pocket, but they just haven't been screened against the correct chemical matter to find a hit against that particular type of pocket. So that's something that DEL does quite well. And of course, many targets, you don't know if they're druggable or not. And again, DEL is useful for making an assessment, is that target druggable? Does it have a binding pocket? Well, you can run a DEL screen and you can find out.
Great. With that, we'll have to conclude the webinar. Thank you, Alex. Thank you to all the panelists speaking today. This is Mu Ying from Wuxi AppTec. Thank you for joining us today. If you have additional questions, please feel free to reach out to us. We'd be glad to have more discussion with you on these wonderful DEL kits, and hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Bye.